That night, I worked late until past 1 in the morning. My eyelids felt as heavy as lead. All I wanted was to get home, take a hot shower, and collapse into bed. To save time, I decided to take a shortcut through a narrow alley that people usually avoided. The alley was eerily quiet, not even the cry of a stray cat. A cool breeze brushed past my ears, making me instinctively shrink my neck into my collar. Halfway through, I spotted a basketball court at the side of the alley. The lights flickered like they were on the verge of burning out. The court was completely empty, not a soul in sight. But on the wooden bench near the hoop, 3 people sat. They had their backs to me, sitting perfectly straight, completely still, like statues. None of them spoke, none of them moved. They just stared at the center of the court. I glanced at them and felt uneasy, but told myself not to overthink it. It was the middle of the night, maybe they were drunk or just sitting there lost in thought. I kept walking, passing behind them, but after just a few steps, I felt a piercing gaze at the back of my head, sharp as a needle. I couldn't help but turn around. The 3 of them hadn't moved. Their bodies were still facing the court, but their heads had turned to look at me. The dim light kept me from seeing their expressions, but I could feel their eyes locked onto me. A chill ran up my spine. I turned and quickened my pace, my heartbeat thundering in my ears. At the next corner, I couldn't resist glancing back. They were all standing now, their bodies still pointed at the court, but their faces twisted toward me at an unnatural angle, like their necks had been forcefully wrenched around. Cold sweat broke out on my forehead. My steps quickened, almost breaking into a run. The streetlight stretched my shadow long across the ground. I reached another corner, panting, and dared to look back. They were standing exactly where I had last seen them, bodies facing the court, but their faces were twisted even further, almost turned completely to their backs. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. I didn't have time to think. I just ran as fast as I could. The night wind howled. My shoes clattered wildly on the asphalt. When I got close to home, I finally slowed, catching my breath. I looked back one more time, and what I saw nearly made my legs give out. They were barely 5 steps behind me. Their bodies were still stiffly facing away, but their faces had twisted so much the skin seemed bunched and mangled. Their eyes locked onto me. I hadn't heard a single footstep behind me. I hadn't felt anyone approaching. I didn't care about appearances anymore. I sprinted to my door, fumbling with my keys, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped them. I got the door open, slammed it shut behind me, and locked it tight. I collapsed against the door, freezing cold, sweat streaming down my face. After a few moments, I gathered the nerve to go to the window. I pulled the curtain back just a crack to peek outside. In the darkness, I saw them standing in my yard. This time, their backs were to me, but their faces had twisted all the way around, like they were growing out of their spines. Their eyes were wide, staring at me without blinking. The sight was so horrifying my stomach churned I nearly threw up. I didn't dare make a sound, terrified they'd realize I was watching. But I was so scared I couldn't stand it. I finally forced myself to wake my dad. When he asked what was wrong, I could barely get the words out. I just pointed to the window. He grabbed a jacket and went outside to check. I held my breath, watching as he opened the door, my heart about to burst from my chest. But when he stepped out into the yard, they were gone. Since that night, I've never taken that shortcut again. And whenever I pass that basketball court, I walk as fast as I can, never daring to look. I've been on this cruise ship longer than most. Day in and day out, running trays, cleaning rooms, covering floors. After a while, the sea air even changes the way things taste. It's not that I love the job, it's just once you're on the ship, it's not that easy to get off. Over time, you go numb. Nothing feels surprising anymore. That was true. Until that night, a delivery that should have been routine changed the way I saw this whole ship. That evening, the wind was picking up, the sea a little choppy, The ship swayed more than usual. The kitchen was slammed. Someone ordered 2 cold dishes, a bottle of red wine, and a plate of fried chicken. I put it together and headed up to room 764 on deck 7. That floor's close to the deck, the hallway shorter than the others, and usually quiet at night. As I pushed the food cart toward the room, I felt something was off. Too quiet. Not even a flicker of TV noise or muffled laughter like usual. One of the hallway lights was flickering on, off, on again. My footsteps were barely audible on the carpet. I stopped in front of room 764 and rang the doorbell. Waited a few seconds, no answer. I knocked, still nothing. I was just about to turn around when a voice came from behind me. "Hey, this order's for that room, right?" I turned. A woman in a crew uniform stood behind me. Looked to be in her 40s. Hair neatly tied back, face worn out. I'd never seen her before, no idea what department she was from. I nodded. "Yeah, 764. Someone ordered dinner, but isn't answering." She stepped a little closer and spoke quietly. "Is someone staying in that room?" I blinked. "What?" She leaned in more. "Before you brought the food, did anyone actually tell you there was a guest in there?" That made me uneasy. Who asks something like that? "I'm just following the delivery ticket. Says 764. Someone placed the order, so I brought it." She didn't reply. Just stared at the door for a moment, then took a step back. "They say the room's supposed to be vacant, but someone saw a light on in there earlier. I figured maybe the kitchen sent it to the wrong room." I checked the slip again. Still 764. I pulled out my walkie to call the front desk and confirm the room's status, but the signal was static. "No use. I'll try knocking again," I said. This time I knocked louder. Silence. Then, slowly, the doorknob turned with a soft click. The door opened just a crack. No sound came from inside. No one came to greet me. I froze. Glanced at the woman. She didn't move a muscle. Hands still on the cart, I called out, "Hello. Your dinner's here." No reply. I leaned in, eyes scanning the room. The lights were on, curtains open, bed untouched. A few travel magazines on the table. Everything looked normal. But there were no signs of anyone actually staying there. No luggage, no clothes, no mess, nothing lived in. The woman spoke, barely above a whisper. "Last person to go in there was 3 days ago. A man, no check-in, no ticket, just walked in. And no one's seen him come out." I asked, "What department are you from?" She didn't answer. Just gave me a look, then turned and walked off. The flickering hallway light buzzed again, and her figure seemed to blur in the dimness. I stood there a second longer, then stepped in, placed the tray on the table. "Dinner's here. Let us know if you need anything." I turned to leave, then happened to glance toward the bathroom. The door was slightly open. The mirror above the sink was angled just enough to reflect the bed. And I saw him, a man, standing by the bed. I froze. Whipped my head around. No one there, just the empty bed. Looked back at the mirror. He was still there, standing, watching. His features were hard to make out, but his posture, the shape of his shadow, it was too clear. Too real. I stumbled backward, nearly slammed into the door, then bolted. Pushed the cart all the way back to the kitchen, my heart pounding. The shift manager asked what the hell was wrong with me. I handed him the receipt, my face pale. He took one look and told me to go sit down. I downed 2 glasses of water before I could even think straight. After half an hour, I went back to deck 7 to retrieve the cart. When I got to 764, the door was closed. The food untouched, wine bottle still corked. I rang the bell, knocked again. No answer. Sealed silence. I didn't linger. Just took the cart and got out. The light at the end of the hall was still flickering. And that figure in the mirror, I couldn't get it out of my head. At around 10 that night, I got another order. Caesar salad and a lemon water. from room 766, same floor. I was spooked, but did my job. As I wheeled the cart past 764, I told myself don't look. Got to 766, knocked. A young woman answered, smiling, took the food, thanked me. Just as I turned to leave, she said, I saw someone come out of that room yesterday. I stopped. Which room? She pointed. That one. 764. It was around 2 a.m. I couldn't sleep, just staring at the hallway. Saw someone come out, didn't make a sound. Didn't shut the door, just walked, all the way to the end. She pointed at the door leading to the deck. And then he was gone. I nodded, said nothing more, pushed the cart downstairs. That night I couldn't sleep, tossed and turned. My head full of that mirror, that shadow, and the woman with the crew uniform. The next morning, I got up early. I wanted to know who she was. I asked around, none of my co-workers had ever seen her. I went to the front desk. Do we have any new staff this week? A woman in her 40s, hair tied back. They shook their heads. No new hires this week. Definitely no one like that. Still not satisfied, I went to security and asked to review the hallway footage. Claimed a guest lost something, the guard frowned. Deck 7 had camera issues last night. Signal dropped. We didn't get a full recording. I nearly swore out loud. I glanced down at the delivery log. The entry for room 764 had a line slashed across it. A note scribbled beside it. Auto error. No guest record. That night, I went back to 764. I didn't have food. I wasn't working. I just knocked. No answer. I said, if you're really in there, stop pretending. A sudden gust blew down the hallway from nowhere. The door swayed, creaked. I knocked again. This time, the door swung open. Same pristine room, same light on. But the food cart was gone. No trace of the meal. I didn't step in. I couldn't. Then the bathroom door started to close on its own. Quietly, like someone was gently pushing it shut. I ran. Slipped, hit the wall, nearly screamed from the pain in my knee, but I didn't. I kept running, until I saw other crew members downstairs. I never went near that corner of the ship again. Never delivered to 764 after that. Eventually, I requested a transfer. Got moved to the bar, day shift only. That night, I was rushing to catch the last train home. The platform was nearly empty, with only a few other commuters looking as exhausted as I felt. A cold wind swept through from the tracks, carrying the damp, metallic scent of rust. I pulled my coat tighter around me, stuffed my hands into my pockets, and stared into the darkness beyond. The digital clock flickered. 11:27 p.m. The train still hadn't arrived. Suddenly, an announcement crackled over the loudspeaker. The voice distorted. Train approaching. Please stand clear of the platform edge, but the time and route displayed on the sign didn't match anything I recognized. I froze for a second, glancing around. No one else reacted. It was as if they hadn't heard it at all. A few minutes later, two dim lights appeared in the distance, and a train crept toward the platform. But something was off. The engine at the front looked decades old, like something out of the past. The paint on the cars was faded and grimy. The windows so dirty, they barely reflected the station lights. I hesitated, thinking I should step back, but before I could move, the train had stopped. The doors slid open with a hiss, releasing a gust of air that carried a strange, almost rotten smell. I peeked inside. The carriage was dim, with just a few shadowy figures slumped in their seats. I knew I shouldn't get on, but my legs moved on their own, and I stepped into the car. The doors slammed shut behind me, and the train started moving immediately. Inside, it was deathly silent. The few passengers kept their heads down, as if they were asleep, completely still. The lights flickered, and each time they came on, it felt like the figures had shifted slightly. But when I blinked, they seemed unchanged. I found a seat by the window and sat down. Outside, it was pitch black. No streetlights, no buildings, just the clattering of wheels on metal rails, steady and cold. I don't know how long I sat there before the loudspeaker came on again. Next stop, Platform Zero. I'd never heard of that station before. I turned to look at the other passengers. They still had their heads down, showing no sign they'd heard anything at all. When the train began to slow, a chill ran through me. The sight outside made my skin crawl. The platform wasn't like any normal station. A few crooked iron pillars held up a collapsing roof. The ground was littered with loose stones. There were no signs, no lights. The whole place looked abandoned, like it hadn't seen a train or a person in decades. The doors opened silently, the air smelled of mildew. I didn't plan to get off, but my body stood up as if pulled by some invisible force. Stiff with fear, I stepped out onto the platform. The gravel crunched loudly under my feet. Without waiting for anyone to board or disembark, the train doors shut and it rolled away into the darkness, disappearing without a sound. It was utterly silent. Moonlight shone through gaps in the broken roof, glinting off splintered wood and twisted rails. I turned in every direction, searching for an exit. There was nothing, not even a passageway. The wind howled past my ears, carrying with it a low, mournful wail, like someone crying far away. I decided to follow the tracks, hoping they'd lead me back. Every step on the gravel echoed sharp and clear. After what felt like forever, I heard soft footsteps behind me. They kept pace, never faster, never slower, always at the same distance. When I stopped, they stopped. I spun around. There was nothing there, just the ruined tracks bathed in moonlight. I started walking faster. The footsteps followed. My heart pounded. My breath came short and ragged. I broke into a run. Suddenly, I slipped, falling into a pit hidden beside the tracks. My elbow scraped against something rough, burning with pain. As I tried to catch my breath, I noticed scattered old train tickets and a faded luggage tag lying in the dirt. The writing was worn, but I could just make out a logo from a train that had been shut down years ago after a mysterious accident. The earth beneath me was soft and loose, mixed with rusted metal scraps. I pressed against the side of the hole, trying to calm myself. The footsteps drew closer. I looked up and saw a tall, thin shadow standing at the edge of the pit. The moon stretched its figure, making it even harder to make out. I could only see a pair of feet, perfectly still at the rim. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, watching me, or waiting. I don't know how long we stayed like that. Finally, the shadow slowly stepped back, and the sound of its footsteps faded into the night wind. I scrambled out of the pit, covered in dirt and cold sweat. The moon had risen higher, lighting up the black mass of forest at the end of the tracks. I had no choice. I headed toward the trees. When I reached the edge of the forest, I found an old wooden sign. The letters were barely legible, weathered by time and rain, but I could still read them. Platform Zero. Passengers keep out. A chill ran down my spine. I turned to look back. That forsaken platform stood quietly in the night, exactly as I'd first seen it. It took me the rest of the night to find my way back to civilization. Later, I tried to find any record of that place. There was nothing. No mention of Platform Zero. No one had ever heard of it.